Hello people, this is Mark from Courage Change Works. Guys, hope that you're well. Guys, I'm going to give you 3 more erroneous thinking styles here in the continuation with the thinking playlist. So let's get into it. So before we start, I want to ask you if you can subscribe and share, comment, and do all the YouTube admin if you appreciate the content that we give. And also, if it's helped you in any way, please make that known in the comment section, and then we can continue the conversation. Back to the video. Emotional reasoning. This is the thinking style where logic and facts have been, for a better word, pushed aside. It's out of the way. And you base your thinking on emotions. Now, the problem with emotions are they are very fluid, meaning they're very up and down, very influenced by circumstance and situation. So when you're happy, your thinking styles will tend to be more positive. Likewise, when you're feeling a bit sad and down and you're just having a bit of a rough time, the likelihood is that your thinking will be negative, or will tend to be more negative. And the problem with a lot of people is when circumstances happen, they react emotionally to these facts rather than deal with the facts themselves. And that's quite dangerous when you sit and ponder, particularly nowadays with COVID-19 and lockdown and restrictions here and restrictions there. It will nearly force you down a negative way of thinking. And because everybody's sad and feel more depressed, chances are that people's thinking styles will go from positive and it will gradually transform into negative thinking style if they think about emotional reasoning down that particular style of thinking. Let me give you an example. Your partner has been spending extra time in the office over the last few weeks. You feel jealous and suspicious and conclude that they are having an affair. That's the example given, and the emotional bit here is they must be having an affair. That's the reason why they're spending more time in the office. However, when they come back and they're absolutely tired and completely shattered and they've had a bit of a rest, and you ask the question, hey, why are you spending so much time in the office? And they come up with, there's been a lot of overtime, there's been a lot of illness, or whatever the case might be. And then those facts should correct the thinking style. But the problem with that is people draw that many conclusions that is based on emotions and not fact. It's an erroneous style. So when you find yourself thinking down the emotional route rather than the factual route, it's a erroneous thinking style. What can we do? We need to get the facts. We need to allow time to, for a better word, deflate the emotional kind of state. And that all those anxieties, those stresses, those worries and fears, the things that are your emotional thought kind of basis, they need to disappear. And then when the facts arrive, then you'll be in a far better place to make better decisions. So there's one. Number 2, fortune telling. It's a little bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'll give you an example. You are invited to go somewhere, to say a party or an event of some sort, a celebration, and you assume that it's not going to be fun. You're going to meet people that you don't really want to meet. They're going to be a bunch of strangers. And then you start telling yourself, that it's not going to be a fun event. It's going to be boring. The music's not going to be good. It's not going to be your style. The people might not talk to you, whatever the case might be. And you start telling yourself the story on how bad it's going to be. And you get then convinced that it's going to be so, and then you don't go. And then chances are, you hear reports later that it was an amazing time. Everybody had a lot of fun. The music was fantastic. The food was catered really well, etc. and so on. And now you're feeling guilty and ashamed and sad even that you did not go. And the fortune telling bit is, it is this negative self-talk where you're talking yourself out of situations. So what can we do about it? Number one, test your predictions. Well, there's only one way. In that little example that I've given, there's only one way. It's go. And if you don't like the company, if you don't like the food, if you don't like the music, then you can go and leave. But you need to test your self-talk criteria, those self-talk facts, that story that you've told yourself. You need to go and test it. Be prepared to take risks. Otherwise, you'll never find out. In fact, unless you take risks, you'll never make mistakes and you'll never grow. You might never find out new things. And then finally here, I wrote down, understand that your past experience don't necessarily determine your future experiences. So don't always use the past as a baseline and as a guide for what's going to happen in the future, because things will never be the same again. So be prepared that when you start talking yourself out of situation, that it is an erroneous thinking style. And the final one for today, guys, it is overgeneralization. Generalizing. Sorry about that. And the issue with overgeneralizing is when you do that globally. Everybody's doing this all the time and it only happens to me. Why this way? This is never going to work. Those kind of statements, they are model operators. They are things that you overemphasize things without actually realizing that there are thousands of people who might experience the same thing elsewhere. And it is very destructive, because what happens is your mind in terms of options is now reduced to virtually nothing, because it only happens to you all the time, and this is the only thing that hinders you from moving forward as far as possibly even life is concerned. So when you find yourself talking in these generalized terms, always, never, everyone, everywhere, these kind of things, be aware that that is not true. It is not necessarily so. It might be at that moment in time to you regarding that situation. And also realize that there are thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people potentially, that is experiencing something very, very similar. So what can we do about it? Number one, get a new perspective on this particular issue. Basically, we need to stand back and look at it objectively. Suspend your judgment. Don't assume erroneously that this is always the case to you everywhere you go all the time. No. And finally, be specific. This is happening to me at this point in time, and this is how I'm thinking about it, and I need to do something about it constructively. And then when you step back and you give yourself a few minutes just to get the oxygen through to the brain and get the blood moving freely by, whatever means you do that, chances are clarity will come your way, and then you will realize, hang on a second, the car hasn't started today because there's no petrol in the car, or it's freezing cold outside, or whatever the case might be. And then you can correct it by, depending on the certain circumstance and the situation that you are in. So there you go, guys. There's 3 more. There is a few more to come, but I will do those in future videos. Like I said in the beginning of this particular video, if you enjoy the content, please tell your friends and family to view and subscribe, comment, all those kind of admin stuff for YouTube. I will really appreciate that. But for now, this is Mark from Color Change Works, and I'll speak to you soon.